So I guess one advantage of being David in the David and Goliath story, besides the fact that David wins, so you got that going for you. But like these things will probably play out in courts of law at some point. I mean, you're avoiding the whole GPL thing entirely by excluding it. But I mean, if anyone's going to get sued, right, it's going to be Microsoft, I think, or GitHub. And so you can at least sit on the sideline and see what happens in court and decide what you do.
I don't think so. I don't think there are going to be any lawsuits here. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, right? So I have absolutely zero legal training.
Right.
I don't know that this is something that David cares about deeply. David cares about generating value to developers in a way that respects developers. And this is what David is doing in this story.
Right. Well, I guess my point wasn't them getting sued. My point is if it plays out so that it's totally fine to use GPL code in your model. I mean, you guys are limiting quite a bit the amount of data that you're using.
Correct.
So you would think, Joe Blow over here watching the sidelines think, I bet OpenAI's Codex is better out of the box than Tabnine because they have way more data. Now, once you can start customizing it and training your own models and stuff, maybe not, but like that first user experience. And maybe that's not the case.
The universal model, again, there are so many trade-offs at play here. The size of the model, where inference runs, whether it's Tabnine Cloud or Tabnine Local. So I wouldn't go into the breakdown of this whole thing, right? But let me just say, there is enough data that is with clear, permissive open source license.
Sure, but like you're missing the Linux kernel. Like there's so much knowledge inside the Linux kernel. Wouldn't you want to be able to use that?
I would like to be able to use it, but I restrict myself because the trade-off, I think, is still that I have sufficient amounts of code with the permissive licenses.
So even if it came to where it was no big deal, all open source code, all licenses that are open source, you would leave it with permissive.
At this point, I think that's the right choice. If we, down the road, we're convinced that we're not infringing on people's work in a way that offends them, in a sense that is unethical to them, we may change that decision. It also depends on the granularity of the predictions that you're making. Like if what you're predicting is like a line of code, then I think this is less of an issue, right? Because I trained a model, it predicts 10 words now. Is there really a